Hello and welcome to an Everyday Canines video. This is the Distance Handling 101 Foundation Skills series, and in this episode we're looking at another version of the go cue. So in the previous exercise we looked at having the dog released on a go and sending up to us so they're chasing us. As I said in the previous video, that exercise is an exercise that works really well for running handlers because they're going to spend a lot of the time running ahead of the dog, getting the dog to chase them. So it's great for them. For distance handlers, it's not as vital an exercise. It's still a good exercise to have because we may be in a place where we can get the dog to chase us. It's more important for us to look at other versions of this exercise. So the next version of this exercise is what I call a run by. This is where the dog comes to us just like in the first exercise, but they've got to keep moving past us. And this is an exercise that I can find can be quite a sticky point for some dogs, especially those dogs that are less driven, less getting out there on there. They can get a bit stuck by the handler, so they'll chase the handler nice, but then when they get to the handler and they need to drive past them, they sort of get stuck around. They don't drive on, they don't move on. I've had it with Swift especially. She can be very bad at driving on past me. Even when I could run, she could get really stuck in this position right next to me. I've reached you, now I can't move on. So this is very important, especially as we're going to be, as a distance handler, you're going to probably be stationary, or you're going to want to send your dog on so you can get somewhere else. With that in mind, you need that dog to really power past you. And if they're not doing that, if they get stuck here, then all that's going to happen is you're going to have to keep walking with them basically at your heel. It's essential we get that run by, that notion that if you're coming to me and I tell you to keep going, you're going to keep going. In this example, as it is again on the flat, I'm going to have the dog released. I don't necessarily have to release them on a go. I can release them just as on a K or break, because that's another of my release words. And as the dog is coming towards me, I'm going to then add in that cue, that go cue, to power them forward. And I want that dog to keep powering out. Now we're doing this with no equipment. Why are we doing it with no equipment? Because you're thinking to yourself, well, it would be a lot easier if, say, there was a tunnel there or a jump. Most dogs love tunnels. If I was doing this and I had a dog that loves tunnels and I positioned myself correctly and I called the dog and I went, tunnel, go tunnel, then it would easily get into that tunnel and drive on past me. And you're thinking, well, that's really good. Why don't I set that up so that I can encourage the dog? I've got something for them to focus on. The problem is, and I have done this, is that our dogs then become focused on, they can drive to tunnels. But when there isn't a tunnel there, then they get a bit stuck. And I did this with Magpie. She got nice tunnel drive. And, I was like, oh, if I can lock her onto a tunnel, I'm good to go. The problem was you get places and you realise there isn't a tunnel to drive them onto. And then she gets a bit lost and goes, well, there's no tunnel I can go to, so what would you like now? What would you like now? And then the barking comes. So this was a realisation that having that tunnel is like having a lure. It's like having your treat ball out there, right? It's like having any of these manners minders or a toy or whatever. It's a lure. And the dog isn't actually thinking about what it's doing. It isn't thinking that it's driving past you. What it's thinking about is the fact there's a lure out there and I want to get it. So if I was to put out my manners minders, my treat and train, which is a remote control device, I could set that up as far as I could get the radius on it. I don't know how long the distance is on there, but I could certainly set it up plenty distance to me. Say I set it up 20 meters. I could then stand back, call Swift to me, and I'd say go, and if I pressed the button and they knew Spencer was down there, she'd be powering past me. She'd look like the ultimate distance handling dog, because there she is, she's driven all that distance. But she drove that distance because the manner minder was there. Take that out of the picture, she's not driving to it anymore. So we need to be able to proof the dog so that they understand that they drive past when there's nothing there. So we're going to be doing this exercise and there's going to be nothing. There's nothing to reward them aside from the fact that if they keep moving, eventually something will come down and the reward will come there. But they have to trust that reward's going to come. And this becomes an important element. When you're doing this game, practice your throwing skills. Because what we want is when the dog is powering out, we want the toy to always be dropping down in front of them. We want the toy to fall ahead of them so they don't have to look back for the reward. If your dog gets so far out and you throw the reward and the reward falls behind them, you're teaching the dog to go out and turn back. So it's very important that you practice your throwing skills, potentially with both arms, though of course I do understand that not everybody can throw as well with one arm than the other. I can't throw as well with my left, I can't throw as far as with my right, and some people obviously have problems. So in an ideal world we'd be able to throw really long distance with both arms. If you can't, then you have to focus on what you can do with one arm, but just be careful about that. And we'll talk more about technique when we get in there. But I want to talk to you about the importance of reward placement in this exercise and in all future exercises. In an ideal world, everything falls ahead of the dogs. Now, mistakes happen. Sometimes it's a case of the wind catches a toy and it doesn't fall where you expect it to. If that occurs, then what you need to do is you need to do several reps after that failure of it being good. If necessary, you're going to have the dog go less far out than you would like if that's only as far as you can throw. So it's all that balancing game. We could have a second person throwing in the toy. Of course we could, but we have to be careful that the dog isn't then learning that I drive out when that second person is there. Now, if you've got something like the dreaded ball chucker. Now, I don't use a ball chucker in any way with my dogs out on a walk. I don't like ball chuckers. I don't like just standing there in the park throwing a ball for a dog repeatedly. I'm going to be honest, it's a pointless exercise that just builds arousal and potentially puts the dog in a position to get injured, and no, there's no point in that. But I need to lob something a long way, then it is useful. So in that regard, I have a ball chucker and I can put a toy in there, and if I really need to throw a long way, I can throw it. So in that regard, you could use that. And then you're going to get a lot more distance on there. If you've got a toy, obviously, that fits in that, I've attached a ball to my treat toy, so I can do that. So that's the important thing about reward placement. It has to go down ahead of the dog, and you need to reward before they turn back to you. So that's the key thing you need to know. And we're going to try and build as much distance as possible. And I say we're going to do it on the flat, because if we can do this on the flat with the dog driving on the flat, where they've got nothing to run to, there's no obstacle there, then what we're getting is the understanding from the dog that when I say this go and want them to drive on, you keep going. Bearing in mind agility, everything's going to be the maximum of 10 metres. So as long as I know my dog will power beyond 10 metres away from me on the flat, I'm good to go. And we can build on that. But that's what we want. So without further ado, let's get into the exercise itself. Okay, so when we want the dog to run past us, we've got our two types of toy. Now this time I'm going to switch to the throwing toy. Going to see how we get on with that. I might go back to the treat ball. We shall see. It's all about seeing what Magpie's in the mood for. She varies. Sometimes she wants to play with a toy and she'll go really mad for the toy. Sometimes she's after food. Now in this one, what my aim is she's already done a bit of proofing, so she knows the drive too, right? That was our first foundation. She's figured that out. Now what I want her to do is come past me. So what I'm going to do is, as she's driving towards me, as I see she's coming level with me, the toy's not going to be here. What's going to happen? I'm going to throw it. And in the initial stages, I'm going to throw it before she's run past me, so that she gets the idea of moving forward. So let me show you what I want. So I'm going to set her up. Again, if you haven't got a weight, get someone to restrain the dog for you. Wait. I'm going to move forward. Now the important thing when I throw, I can throw underarm like this, but I would prefer to throw overarm, because when you throw underarm like this, the dog can see it and it gives them an idea of what's happening. If you throw overarm, it's not so easy for the dog to see what you're doing, and also it's a more static throw and it tends to land in an arc. This way they can see your arm behind you, they can use that as a cue. Go. So you see, I released her. On one go, and I threw. Good girl. She brought the toy back to me. She's going to get a treat for that. Good girl. So that she kept powering in a straight line. I'm going to really watch next time and see if she clocks me at all. Sit. Wait. And I didn't have to say go past me. She knew that. Go. I held off the reward a little there till she was almost level with me. And I waited and she kept going forward. Now what would happen if she wasn't doing that? What would happen if she got there and she looked at me? I'd throw sooner. So if I saw her, she was getting here and starting to look at me, then I would think to myself, right, I need to throw before she does that. So let me show you what I mean. Sit, wait. So if I know she's going to look at me just before she reaches me, I'm going to throw before that moment. Go. So that her focus maintains forward. Always got to be maintaining forward. Good girl. And as we progress this exercise, wait. What we want to be able to do is hold off and the dog runs quite a bit past before we throw. Go! Now, she was looking at me. I saw her at the corner of my eye. She got past me, she looked. Good girl. So I don't want that. So this time, I'm going to throw sooner. What we want is the dog to anticipate the toys coming out of there, not watching the throw. So this time again, I'm going to throw sooner. Go! And if necessary, I'm going to throw a lot sooner to get her looking ahead of me. All the time, always, she's got to look ahead of me. I can still see she's got one eye on me in this toy. So how can I alter that up? I can play a little game and switch it to a treat. And we can take it a little bit backwards. And now I'm going to have the treat. And I'm going to do very, very light movement. And now she can barely see my hand. My hand's going to be hidden away. And I'm going to say, go. And the treat's going to go out. And now she has to look forward because the treat is small. If she doesn't look forward, she's going to miss it. So if I'm having lots of problems with the toy and the toy is too obvious, even from here, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a treat. And she says, I'm done with toys now. Can we have treats, please? And I'm going to do it with a treat because then she can't see it. Because I've got to be so careful. If she's looking at this, then she's not learning the exercise. So let's put these away for a second. And what I can do when I've got a treat in my hand, as I said, she's got to look forward. Sit. Because if she doesn't look forward, she doesn't see where it is. So I say, go. She's got to look down to see where that lands. It's not as obvious. So now making it, there's no value looking in my hand because the hand, she can see me throw it, but she won't be able to see the treat. Go. And I can still see she's keeping an eye on me and what I'm doing. But that time she was looking more ahead so that I can still see I've got things to work on with her. And it's about keep proofing it, keep playing with the exercise to build up the understanding that you drive forward without looking at me. And of course, when the dog is driving past you, they are going to be looking a bit more because they can obviously, they're going to look to see what you're doing next. It is natural for them to have a quick look, but what I want them to do is to keep moving past and the head go forward again. And I'll show you in a second what it looks like with a dog that is better at that, which is Swift, and then you can see exactly what we're doing. Good girl, Magpie. So with Swift, as a dog that's better at focusing forward, hopefully, as she now does this run past with me, she will focus forward on what the outcome is going to be. Go! Ironically, she doesn't have the same drive as Magpie. Yeah, she tends to be better at focusing forward. Okay, sit. So what I want to see is she's going to just drive straight forward. Go! So she does still have that little look at me because she's wondering what I'm doing, but she does push her attention forward. She starts to drive past me and she's not looking at me. So here we go. Hopefully she's going to drive really fast. Go! And I can see as she's coming past me, she's moving forward. Her head is, she's not looking back. There's a slight, she is paying attention, but she's looking forward. So there's a difference between paying attention and anticipating the reward because she's still moving fast. She's still powering on as much as Swift powers on. Go! Go! And this is an exercise that is very challenging for dogs who are not naturally prone to driving away from the handler. So, you know, it's something to have patience with and to keep proofing on. Good girl. I hope you've enjoyed this Everyday Canines video, and if you have, you might like to subscribe to the channel. You can click the notifications icon, which is the bell icon, and that'll tell you when new videos are out. And you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and we've also got a website. So I hope to see you all again very, very soon.